Hi everyone, I'm James Marino, and in this video I'll be going over the effects of fishing for spawning freshwater bass. Background information. Freshwater bass are the most popular fish to catch in the United States of America, and fishing for these bass has become even more popular through social media influencers all over YouTube and professional level fishing tournaments being broadcasted on national television. This has increased the amount of fishing pressure on bodies of water across the country. To the right, I'm sure some of you recognize this logo, and that's the logo of the Guggen Squad, which is a group of fishing YouTubers with millions of subscribers that have caused a massive spike in the popularity and pressure of bass fishing. Spawning conditions. Bass are very vulnerable in the springtime of the year when they spawn. Bass will start to spawn when the water temperature is around 60 to 65 degrees. This slight variation in water temperature relating to their spawning cycle is due to other factors that trigger the bass to spawn, such as the moon phase and the length of days. Generally, waves of bass will move to the shallows to spawn when the moon is about to be full or is full. So even if the water temperatures are right, if the days are still too short, or if the moon phase isn't right, the bass will wait to spawn. To the right is a table that breaks down the three major cycles and phases of the bass. These are pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. And as you can see, according to the chart, the spawning period is around 60 to 65 degrees. And then once the water temperature reaches a little over 65 degrees, generally 65 to 70 degrees, the bass are done spawning and they enter the post-spawn phase of the year. Information to know about the spawning conditions of bass is when the bass spawn, they generally spawn in about 4 feet of water up to as shallow as 6 inches of water. And spawning bass use their tails to fan out patches of gravel, which are referred to as beds. And these will be round patches of sand where weeds and sediment have been cleared from the bottom. And this is because hard and gravelly bottom is important for the bass to lay their eggs. And these beds are usually super easy to spot because they're usually a bright white or yellow circle of sand in the middle of a dark bottom of weeds. And then the fish are then easily spotted on these beds and they're put in a very vulnerable position. Things to know about the spawning behaviors of bass are that bass naturally have the instincts to defend their beds from other fish and predators that are trying to eat the eggs that they laid on the bed. So fishermen casting repeatedly at the beds, this leaves the bass no option but to move the lures off the bed. And most of the time these fish aren't even trying to eat the lures and they end up getting caught. And if you put these bass back immediately in the water, it's not a huge problem, but being kept away from their bed for extended periods of time will allow other fish such as bluegill, carp, and gobies to eat the eggs off the bed and disturb it. And an interesting study from Ohio University on Lake Erie found that once a bass was caught off its bed and removed from it, it only took an average about 15 minutes for the gobies to eat all of the bass eggs, and then this would obviously ruin the spawn for that bass. Fishing tournaments are very bad for spawning bass, and this is because bass will be put in the live wells of boats for hours and then get weighed in at sites miles away from their beds. And this picture to the right shows the live well of a boat, showing you what the bass will be living in for the period of a day over a tournament. Not only is this extremely stressful for a fish carrying eggs, but these fish will likely never make it back to their chosen place to spawn. This causes negative impacts on fisheries, showing signs of decreasing populations year after year. And this has caused all sorts of controversy amongst anglers around the world, arguing that lakes should be closed down for periods of time when the fish are spawning, and arguing against the removal of fish from their beds. In conclusion, some major points to take away are that social media has caused bass fishing to become much more popular in the recent years, which has led to much more fishing pressure. Next, bass spawn in very shallow water, which makes them an easy target. If bass are kept off their beds for an extended period of time, other fish will eat their eggs off the bed, and bass may not find their way back to the bed. This is why fishing tournaments during the spawn can be harmful to the future of bass populations. And lastly, I feel that populations have been declining, but they can rebound over time if the right practices are used and regulations are put in place for these spawning fish. These are my works cited. Thank you for your time.